The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Inside a luxurious penthouse that overlooked the bustling city below, 8-year-old Ethan Lane sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by colorful building blocks. His fingers moved quickly as he tried to construct what he called the tallest tower in the world. He glanced at the clock every few minutes, waiting for his mother, Victoria Lane, to come home. Victoria was not like other mothers. She wasn't always there to tuck him into bed or read him stories before bedtime. Instead, she spent most of her days managing her successful business empire. Still, Ethan loved her deeply. She worked hard so they could live in this beautiful apartment filled with shiny furniture, soft carpets, and walls adorned with expensive paintings. But sometimes, Ethan wished she would spend more time with him. As Ethan stacked one block on top of another, a sudden knock echoed through the quiet room. Startled, he looked up from his game. No one ever came to their door unannounced, especially not when his mother wasn't home. Curious, Ethan stood up and walked toward the heavy, wooden door. Standing on his tiptoes, he peeked through the peephole. What he saw made his eyes widen in surprise. There, standing outside their pristine penthouse, was a boy about his age. The boy wore clothes that were torn and dirty, and his hair stuck out in all directions, as if it hadn't been combed in days. Despite his disheveled appearance, there was something familiar about him, something Ethan couldn't quite put his finger on. Hesitant but intrigued, Ethan unlocked the door and opened it just wide enough to peer out. "Who are you?" he asked cautiously, gripping the edge of the door tightly. The boy shifted uncomfortably, looking down at his scuffed shoes. After a moment, he lifted his head and met Ethan's gaze. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. I think we're related," he said softly. Ethan tilted his head, confused. "Related? Like how?" The boy hesitated again, then blurted out, "Like brothers." For a second, Ethan thought he must have misheard. Brothers? How could this scruffy stranger be his brother? They didn't look alike, or did they? Now that Ethan studied him closely, he noticed similarities. Both had the same shade of brown eyes, though the boys were tired and wary. Their noses were shaped similarly, too. It was faint, but undeniable. Before Ethan could respond, the boy added quickly, "My name is Liam. My mom told me to find you. Guys, she said our mom is rich and lives here." Ethan blinked, trying to process what he'd just heard. This boy claimed to be his brother? And their mother? Was it possible? Ethan knew very little about his father. His mother rarely spoke of him. Could this mean— "Wait here," Ethan said finally, closing the door gently. He ran to the kitchen counter where his mother kept her phone and dialed her number with trembling hands. When she answered, her voice sounded distant and preoccupied as usual. "Mom, someone's here," Ethan began, his words tumbling over each other in excitement. "He says he's my brother. What does that mean? Is he really my brother?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. For once, Victoria's confident tone faltered. "Ethan, don't let him inside yet. Stay calm. I'm coming home right now." Ethan hung up, feeling a mix of confusion and curiosity swirling inside him. Who was this boy named Liam? Why had no one told? Ethan stood frozen in the middle of the penthouse, clutching the phone tightly in his small hands. His mind raced with questions. Who was Liam? If he really was Ethan's brother, why hadn't Victoria ever mentioned him before? The silence in the room felt heavy, broken only by the distant hum of cars passing below on the busy city streets. Liam waited patiently outside the door, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He could hear faint voices inside but couldn't make out what they were saying. Nervously, he glanced around the hallway, taking in the polished marble floors and golden elevator doors. This place was nothing like the cramped apartment he shared with his mother back home. Everything here seemed so perfect. Too perfect. Inside, Ethan paced back and forth, trying to piece together what little information he had. He thought about the stories his mother sometimes told him about his father, a man Ethan had never met. According to Victoria, Ethan's father had left long ago, disappearing without a trace. She rarely spoke of him, And whenever Ethan asked, she would simply say, "It's better if we don't talk about it." Could Liam be connected to that part of his family? Was this why his mother sounded so uneasy over the phone? Minutes later, the sound of high heels clicking against the marble floor signaled Victoria's arrival. Ethan rushed to greet her as she stepped out of the elevator, her face pale and drawn. She carried herself with her usual poise, but there was something different about her today, an air of tension that Ethan had never seen before. "Where is he?" Victoria asked sharply, setting her briefcase down on the counter. "He's still outside," Ethan replied hesitantly. "Should I let him in?" Victoria paused, closing her eyes briefly as though gathering her thoughts. Then, with a deep breath, she nodded. "Yes, bring him in. But stay close to me, Ethan." When Ethan opened the door again, Liam looked up at him nervously. For a moment, neither boy said anything. Finally, Ethan gestured for Liam to follow him inside. As Liam entered the penthouse, his eyes widened in awe. He took in the sleek furniture, the sparkling chandelier, and the panoramic view of the city skyline. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Victoria watched silently from the living room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her sharp gaze swept over Liam, noting his worn-out clothes and unkempt appearance. Though she tried to keep her expression neutral, Ethan noticed the flicker of emotion that passed over her face. Was it guilt? Sadness? He couldn't tell. "Sit down," Victoria instructed, pointing to the couch. Liam obeyed, perching awkwardly on the edge of the cushion. Ethan sat beside him, studying his newfound brother curiously. After a long pause, Victoria finally spoke. "What's your name?" "Liam," the boy replied softly, looking down at his hands. "My mom sent me here. She said you're my real mom too." The room fell silent. Ethan looked between Liam and Victoria, searching for answers in their expressions. Victoria's jaw tightened, and for a moment, she seemed lost in thought. Then, with a sigh, she sat down across from them. "I see," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of sadness beneath her words. "Tell me about your mother. What's her name?" "Her name is Sarah," Liam answered. "She works at a diner near our house. She doesn't have much money, but she tries really hard to take care of me. She always talks about how lucky I am to have another family out there. A better family." Ethan frowned. Another family? Did that mean Liam had known all along that Victoria existed? Why hadn't anyone told him? Victoria leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "Sarah is an old friend of mine," she admitted reluctantly. "We grew up together, but we haven't spoken in years. I didn't know she had kept in touch with you or told you about us." Liam nodded slowly. "She said you moved away and became rich. She said you might not want to see me because of that, but I wanted to meet you anyway." Ethan's heart ached for Liam. He couldn't imagine being told that someone in his family didn't want to see him. Turning to Victoria, he asked, "Mom, is he really my brother? Is that true?" Victoria hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Ethan. Liam is your half-brother. We'll talk more about this later, but for now, I need you both to understand that things are complicated." Liam's eyes lit up with hope. "Does that mean I can stay here, with you guys?" Victoria stiffened, clearly caught off guard by the question. Before she could respond, Ethan chimed in excitedly. "Of course you can stay, you're my brother." But Victoria placed a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder, silencing him. "This isn't a decision we can make lightly," she said firmly. "There's a lot to consider." As the evening wore on, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Liam. Despite their differences, he already felt a connection to him. Deep down, he hoped his mother would find a way to bring their family together, but he couldn't shake the feeling that doing so wouldn't be easy. The penthouse grew quieter as night fell, casting soft shadows across the room. Victoria sat at the dining table, her fingers tracing the edge of a teacup absent-mindedly. Ethan and Liam were seated nearby, their eyes fixed on her, waiting for answers. The air felt heavy with unspoken words, like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Finally, Victoria sighed deeply and looked up, her gaze shifting between the two boys. "I suppose it's time you both knew the truth," she began, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "This isn't an easy story to tell, but I owe it to you." Ethan leaned forward eagerly, his curiosity outweighing any fear he might have felt. Beside him, Liam fidgeted nervously, clutching the hem of his worn shirt. Despite their different lives, they shared one thing in common: the need to understand where they came from. Victoria took a deep breath before continuing. "Years ago, when I was younger, before I became successful, I lived in a small town with my best friend Sarah. We were inseparable back then, always dreaming of bigger things, but life had other plans for us." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "One summer, we met a man named Daniel. He was charming, kind, and full of promises. At first, everything seemed perfect, but soon, things changed. Daniel wasn't who he appeared to be. He left our lives as quickly as he entered them, leaving behind broken dreams and 2 children. Ethan's eyes widened. "You mean Dad?" Victoria nodded slowly. "Yes, Ethan. Daniel is your father and Liam's too. After he disappeared, Sarah and I went our separate ways. She chose to raise Liam on her own while I focused on building a new life for myself. Over time, we lost touch completely." Liam frowned, struggling to process what he'd just heard. "So, you're saying my dad left us? Both of us?" Victoria hesitated, then nodded again. "I'm afraid so. It wasn't fair to either of you or to Sarah and me, but that's why I worked so hard to create a better future. I wanted to give Ethan a life free from struggle, a life filled with opportunities." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. For a moment, no one spoke. Ethan glanced at Liam, noticing the mix of emotions playing across his face: confusion, anger, and perhaps even a hint of hope. "But what about me?" Liam asked quietly, breaking the silence. "Did you forget about me after you left?" Victoria flinched as though struck by his question. She reached out, placing a hand over Liam's trembling fingers. "No, Liam, I never forgot about you. But I thought Sarah didn't want me involved in your life, and honestly, I was scared. Scared of facing the past, scared of making things worse. I convinced myself that staying away was the right choice." Tears welled up in Liam's eyes, but he blinked them back fiercely. "It wasn't fair," he whispered. "You got to live this amazing life while Mom and I barely got by. Do you know how hard it was for her? How hard it still is?" Ethan listened intently, feeling torn between loyalty to his mother and sympathy for Liam. He had always admired Victoria's strength and determination, but now he saw cracks in the polished image she presented to the world. She wasn't just a powerful businesswoman. She was also someone burdened by guilt and regret. "I know," Victoria admitted softly, her own voice cracking with emotion. "And I can't change the past. But maybe we can start fixing things now. Together." For the first time, since arriving, Liam allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe coming here hadn't been a mistake after all. Still, doubts lingered in his mind. Could Victoria truly accept him as part of her family? Or would she push him away once the initial shock wore off? Ethan, sensing Liam's uncertainty, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We're brothers," he said firmly. "That means we stick together no matter what." Liam managed a small smile, grateful for Ethan's unwavering support. But deep down, he wondered how long this fragile bond would last. Victoria's wealth and influence were worlds apart from the life he'd always known. Would he ever truly belong here? As the clock ticked past midnight, Victoria made a decision. "Liam, you'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. One thing is certain, you're not alone anymore." Though her words offered comfort, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that challenges lay ahead. Reuniting a fractured family wouldn't be easy, but perhaps, just perhaps, it was worth trying. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling, windows of the penthouse bathing everything in a warm golden glow. Ethan woke up early, his mind buzzing with excitement and questions about the day ahead. He tiptoed out of his room and peeked into the guest bedroom where Liam had slept. The bed was neatly made. Liam must have already gotten up. Ethan found him sitting by the window staring out at the sprawling city below. Liam looked small against the backdrop of towering skyscrapers and busy streets. His face was thoughtful, almost wistful, as if he were trying to make sense of this strange new world he'd stepped into. "Good morning," Ethan said cheerfully, breaking the silence. "Did you sleep okay?" Liam turned to look at him, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I guess so. It's just different. Everything here is so big and shiny." Ethan nodded enthusiastically. "I know, right? Wait till you see the pool on the rooftop and Mom lets me play video games in the living room whenever I want." But Liam didn't seem as thrilled as Ethan expected. Instead, he looked down at his hands, which were still calloused from years of helping his mother around their modest apartment. "It's cool," he muttered, "but it doesn't feel like home yet." Before Ethan could respond, Victoria appeared in the doorway, dressed in a crisp business suit. Her expression was calm, but there was an underlying tension in her movements. She carried a tray with 3 steaming cups of hot chocolate, a gesture that surprised both boys. "I thought we could start the day with something sweet," she said, setting the tray down on the coffee table, "and talk about what happens next." Ethan beamed, grabbing a cup eagerly. "This is awesome. Can we go swimming later?" Victoria chuckled softly before turning her attention to Liam, who hesitated before taking a sip of his drink. "Liam, I know this is a lot to take in," she began gently, "but I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help you adjust. That includes figuring out how to balance your life here with your life back home." Liam frowned, setting his cup aside. "What does that mean? Am I supposed to live here now? Or just visit sometimes?" Victoria paused, choosing her words carefully. "That depends on several factors. First, we need to consider your mother's wishes. Sarah has been raising you all these years, and her role in your life is important. If she agrees, I'd like to explore the possibility of bringing you into our family more permanently, but only if it's what you want too." For the first time since arriving, Liam felt conflicted. On one hand, the idea of staying in this luxurious penthouse with access to everything he'd ever dreamed of was tempting. On the other hand, leaving his mother behind felt wrong. He couldn't imagine abandoning her when she needed him most. "What about my mom?" Liam asked quietly. "She works so hard for us. What will she do without me?" Victoria's heart ached at the sincerity in his voice. "Your mother won't be alone, Liam. We'll find ways to support her as well. Maybe I can offer her a job within my company or provide financial assistance. This isn't just about you. It's about making sure everyone benefits." Though her words sounded reassuring, Liam wasn't entirely convinced. He glanced at Ethan, who watched him with wide, hopeful eyes. For a brief moment, he wondered if having a brother might actually outweigh the sacrifices he'd have to make. Later that afternoon, Victoria arranged for Liam to explore the building while Ethan showed him around. They visited the rooftop pool, the state-of-the-art gym, and even the private theater room. At first, Liam tried to act excited, but his enthusiasm faded quickly. He couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't belong in such opulence. As they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Ethan noticed Liam's distant expression. "You don't seem happy," he said bluntly. "Is it because of me or Mom?" Liam shook his head. "No, it's not you guys, it's just, I don't know if I can fit in here. My whole life has been about surviving, not living like this. What if I mess up? What if people think I don't deserve to be here?" Ethan placed a hand on Liam's shoulder, surprising him with his determination. "You're my brother, Liam. You deserve to be wherever you feel happiest. And if anyone gives you trouble, I'll handle it, okay?" Liam smiled faintly, touched by Ethan's loyalty. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could find a place in this unfamiliar world. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, Liam knew one thing for certain. Adjusting to this new life wouldn't happen overnight. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. Yet amidst it all there was hope, a fragile but undeniable bond forming between two brothers who refused to let each other go. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Liam. Each morning, he woke up in the luxurious penthouse, surrounded by comforts he had only dreamed of before. Yet no matter how plush the bed or how breathtaking the view from the windows, something inside him felt unsettled. A lingering ache for the life he'd left behind. Victoria did her best to make Liam feel welcome. She enrolled him in Ethan's school, arranged for new clothes and supplies, and even hired a tutor to help him catch up academically. But despite her efforts, Liam struggled to adapt. The other students at school whispered about him. The mysterious boy who suddenly appeared with the Lane family. Some were curious, others seemed suspicious. It didn't help that Liam kept mostly to himself, unsure of how to navigate this unfamiliar social world. At home, things weren't much easier. While Ethan tried endlessly to include Liam in his activities, video games, swimming, and movie nights, Liam often found himself retreating into quiet corners of the penthouse. He missed his mother terribly. Her voice, her laugh, the way she hummed while cooking dinner, all those little things haunted him. He called her every evening, but their conversations were bittersweet. Sarah sounded happy for him, encouraging him to embrace this opportunity. But Liam could hear the loneliness in her tone. One afternoon, after another long day at school where he'd barely spoken to anyone, Liam sat alone on the rooftop pool deck. The city stretched out endlessly before him, its noise muffled by the height of the building. He stared at the horizon, wishing he could escape back to his old life, even if it meant giving up all the luxuries he now had. Ethan found him there, clutching a sketch pad tightly in his hands. "Hey," Ethan said softly, sitting beside him. "You okay?" Liam shrugged without looking up. "I guess so." "You don't seem like it," Ethan pressed gently. "You've been acting weird since you got here. Is it because of me or Mom?" "No, it's not you guys," Liam replied quickly, shaking his head. "It's just everything. This place feels like a dream. But I can't stop thinking about my mom, about our apartment, about how different everything is here." Ethan frowned, processing his words. "Do you miss your mom?" "More than anything," Liam admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "She's always been there for me, you know? Even when we didn't have much, she made sure I was happy. Now I'm here, living this amazing life, and she's still stuck back there, working herself to exhaustion. It doesn't feel right." Ethan thought for a moment, then spoke with surprising maturity. "Maybe we can figure out a way to bring her here too. Like, what if she visited, or maybe stayed for a while? Would that make you feel better?" Liam looked at him, surprised by the suggestion. "Do you really think your mom would agree to that?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted, "but we won't know unless we ask, right?" That evening during dinner, Ethan brought up the idea to Victoria. At first, she seemed hesitant, clearly weighing the implications of such a request. But as she watched Liam's hopeful expression, she realized it might be the key to helping him settle in. "It's not impossible," Victoria said finally, setting her fork down. "If Sarah is willing, I could arrange for her to visit. We could use this time to discuss how we can support her moving forward. After all, she's part of this family too." Liam's eyes lit up with gratitude. "Really? You'd do that?" Victoria nodded, though her smile was tinged with caution. "Yes, but let's take it one step at a time. First, we need to ensure this is something Sarah wants as well." Over the next few days, excitement filled the penthouse as plans began to take shape. Victoria reached out to Sarah, who initially hesitated but eventually agreed to visit. Meanwhile, Liam started opening up more, sharing stories about his life back home with Ethan. They laughed over silly memories, like the time Liam accidentally knocked over an entire tray of muffins at the diner where Sarah worked. Slowly, the bond between the brothers grew stronger. When the day of Sarah's arrival finally came, the atmosphere was electric. Victoria greeted her warmly at the door, offering her a hug that caught Sarah off guard. Though years had passed, since they'd last seen each other. There was a flicker of familiarity in their reunion, a reminder of the friendship they once shared. As Sarah stepped into the penthouse, her eyes widened in awe. "This place is incredible," she murmured, glancing around. Then, spotting Liam, her face softened. "And look at you, you're already fitting in so well." Liam ran to her, throwing his arms around her waist. "I missed you so much, Mom." Sarah hugged him tightly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I missed you too, sweetheart, but seeing you happy makes it worth it." For the first time since arriving, Liam felt a sense of peace. His two worlds, the simplicity of his past and the grandeur of his present, were beginning to merge. And as he stood between his mother and his newfound family, he realized that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to choose between them after all. Sarah's visit to the penthouse marked a turning point for everyone involved. For the first time, the fractured pieces of their family began to come together, albeit cautiously. The initial days were filled with polite conversations and awkward silences as Sarah adjusted to the opulent surroundings that felt so foreign to her. She marveled at the sweeping views of the city, the gleaming marble floors, and the endless array of modern amenities. But beneath her admiration lay a quiet unease. This wasn't her world, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. Victoria, sensing Sarah's discomfort, made an effort to bridge the gap between them. Over cups of tea in the sunlit living room, they talked about old times, their childhood adventures, shared dreams, and the challenges they faced growing up. These moments brought back memories of a friendship long buried under years of separation and unspoken pain. Slowly, the walls between them began to crumble. Meanwhile, Liam found solace in having his mother nearby. Her presence gave him strength and reminded him of who he was, a boy who valued kindness, resilience, and hard work over material wealth. Together they explored the city, visiting parks, museums, and local markets. On one such outing, Sarah noticed how much Ethan had grown since she last saw him as a baby. Though hesitant at first, Ethan warmed up to her quickly, sharing stories about his school, hobbies, and favorite video games. By the end of the day, laughter echoed through the streets as the four of them walked side by side, looking more like a family than ever before. But not everything was smooth sailing. One evening during dinner, tensions flared when the topic of Liam's future came up. Victoria suggested enrolling Liam in private tutoring sessions to help him excel academically, while also providing opportunities for extracurricular activities, like music lessons or sports clubs. "I just want what's best for him," Victoria explained earnestly. "He deserves every chance to succeed." Sarah frowned, setting her fork down. "I appreciate your intentions, Victoria, but I don't want Liam losing sight of where he comes from. He's always been proud of working hard and earning things on his own. I don't want him spoiled by all this luxury." Liam shifted uncomfortably in his seat, caught in the middle of their disagreement. Ethan glanced nervously between his mother and Sarah, unsure of how to diffuse the tension. Victoria sighed, leaning back in her chair. "You're right, Sarah. It's important for Liam to stay grounded, but we can find a balance, can't we? A way to give him opportunities without taking away his values." The room fell silent as each person reflected on her words. Finally, Liam spoke up, his voice soft but firm. Maybe I could keep doing some of the things I used to do back home, like helping out at the diner or volunteering in the community. That way, I won't forget where I came from." Sarah smiled warmly at her son, pride shining in her eyes. "That sounds perfect, sweetheart." Victoria nodded slowly, impressed by Liam's maturity. "We'll make it happen," she promised. "And perhaps, Sarah, you could join us here more often. You've sacrificed so much for Liam. I'd like to support you too." Though Sarah hesitated, she eventually agreed to consider staying in the city part-time. Victoria offered her a position within her company, allowing her to earn a steady income while being closer to Liam. It wasn't an easy decision, leaving behind the familiarity of her hometown, but the thought of watching her son thrive in this new environment made it worth considering. As the week drew to a close, Sarah prepared to return home temporarily, promising to return soon. On her last night, the family gathered on the rooftop deck, gazing at the glittering city lights below. The air was cool, carrying with it a sense of hope and renewal. "You know," Sarah said softly, breaking the silence, "I never imagined our lives would turn out like this. But seeing you all together, it feels like something beautiful is beginning." Ethan grinned, nudging Liam playfully. "Yeah, and now we have a brother. Things are going to be awesome," Liam chuckled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. For the first time, he believed it too. Despite the challenges ahead, he knew they would face them together, as a family. As Sarah hugged Liam goodbye the next morning, tears welled up in both their eyes. "Be strong, sweetheart," she whispered. "And remember, no matter where you are, you'll always be my boy." With those words lingering in the air, Sarah stepped into the elevator, waving until the doors closed behind her. Liam watched her go, his heart full of gratitude. He turned to see Victoria and Ethan standing beside him, their expressions kind and supportive. This was only the beginning of their journey, a road paved with uncertainties but also boundless possibilities. And for the first time, Liam felt ready to walk it alongside his newfound family. Weeks turned into months, and the Lane household transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The once fractured family began to heal, stitching together the threads of their shared past while building a future rooted in love, understanding, and compromise. Liam's presence brought a fresh perspective to the penthouse, a reminder that happiness wasn't measured by wealth but by connection and belonging. Victoria embraced her role as both a mother and a mentor, not just to Ethan, but also to Liam. She encouraged him to pursue his passions, whether it was art, sports, or volunteering at the local community center. On weekends, she often accompanied Liam and Sarah to visit their old neighborhood, where they helped organize events for struggling families. These trips allowed Liam to stay connected to his roots while introducing Victoria to a side of life she had long forgotten. For Sarah, adjusting to her new role wasn't easy. Moving between two worlds, the modest life she'd always known and the luxurious one offered by Victoria, was daunting. But over time, she found her footing. Her job at Victoria's company gave her financial stability, and her frequent visits to the penthouse allowed her to remain close to Liam. Slowly, she began to see Victoria not as the distant figure from her past, but as a friend who genuinely cared about their family's well-being. Ethan, too, blossomed in unexpected ways. Having a brother changed him. Where he had once been self-centered and focused solely on his own interests, he now thought of others first. He taught Liam how to play video games, introduced him to his friends at school, and even stood up for him when classmates whispered cruel remarks. In return, Liam showed Ethan the value of humility and hard work, teaching him to appreciate the simple joys in life. One crisp autumn afternoon, the family gathered in the park near their building. Leaves crunched underfoot as Ethan and Liam chased each other around, laughing uncontrollably. Sarah sat on a bench nearby, sipping coffee and watching them with a contented smile. Victoria joined her, holding a thermos of hot chocolate. "They look happy," Victoria remarked, glancing at the boys. "They do," Sarah agreed, her voice soft. "I never thought I'd see Liam this carefree. Thank you, Victoria, for everything." Victoria shook her head, brushing off the gratitude. "We're a team, Sarah. We've made mistakes in the past, but we're doing better now. That's what matters." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the horizon in hues of orange and pink, the group came together for a picnic. Sandwiches, fruits, and cookies were spread out on a checkered blanket, and laughter filled the air. For a moment, none of them thought about the challenges they'd faced or the differences that still lingered. They simply enjoyed being together. Later, that evening, back at the penthouse, Liam stood by the window gazing at the city lights. Ethan approached him carrying 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "Thinking about something?" Ethan asked, handing him a mug. Liam smiled faintly. "Just how far we've come. A few months ago, I didn't even know you existed. Now I can't imagine my life without you, or Mom, or your mom." Ethan grinned, bumping shoulders with him. "Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? Even if things got messy sometimes, we figured it out. Together. Liam nodded, taking a sip of his drink. Do you think it'll always be like this? Happy, I mean. Ethan shrugged. Probably not. Life isn't perfect. But as long as we stick together, I think we'll be okay. Their conversation was interrupted by Victoria and Sarah entering the room carrying plates of dessert. What are you two whispering about? Victoria teased, setting the plates down. Nothing important, Liam replied with a grin. Just how lucky we are. Sarah laughed softly, ruffling Liam's hair. That makes all of us, sweetheart. As they settled in for dessert and stories, the warmth of their bond filled the room. It wasn't a perfect family. They were flawed, complicated, and still learning. But it was theirs. And in that moment, that was enough. Outside, the city buzzed with energy, its lights reflecting off the windows of the penthouse. Inside, a new chapter had begun, a story of forgiveness, acceptance, and love. No matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one family, united by the ties that bound them. And so their journey continued, not without its ups and downs, but always with hope guiding the way.